So this is a quick breakdown of my track Know What It Means featuring Raphaella. So this is the first drum and bass track that I released. So it was something of a new challenge for me. And drum and bass is very hard to make, mix, master. But I'll show you my attempt. Yeah, so I mean, I'll just play you a little bit. It's basically just a sort of, it's not mellow, but it's not as heavy as my other stuff. And yeah, obviously got vocals from Raphaella, who's amazing. Cool, so I usually start with the drums on my project. I used to play the drums for about 5-6 years, so I don't know, I just feel like it, and I picture like a foundation in my head. I always have the drums at the base of it, and obviously with the drum and bass drums there. So I try to layer a little bit. As you can see, I've got 2 kicks, and there's actually 3 sounds on the snare, plus 3 different sort of top layers, which kind of fill out the high end. So let's just solo those. So with the kick, I have the bass kick, and I actually like to put like, there's this great plugin called Texture, and that kind of adds like a layer of white noise on top, which kind of helps the kick to push through a bit. I don't know if you can hear that, it kind of sounds a bit grainy. And then I have this top kick on top, which just punches through a little bit more. Obviously you have the hat, that's the faster hat. And I don't usually do this, but I actually put a flanger on the hat just to make it sound a bit like interesting. It's like subtly changing throughout. The top loops, so I've got this kind of splash, just to try and make it sound more full to the ear, and then just have another top loop which is EQ'd, so obviously that gives it a nice rhythm. Oh, and the last one is the snare. So that's like a rim shot with a lot of reverb. That's like a very sharp hit. I've actually stereo spread that one wider to try and cover sort of one in the middle and then one a bit wider in terms of snares, and then that's obviously like the main one. In terms of processing there, I've just done EQ. I always take the low end out of pretty much everything unless it's the sub. That kind of makes the mix a little bit cleaner, hopefully. Yeah, so that's the drums. Obviously had the build up as well. Cool, so we'll move on. I would say after the drums, I probably would go with the bass line. Now, the bass line is a classic Reese bass, which sounds like this. Just join those together. Yeah, so I write most of my tracks in F minor, so F is like the root note, and I think scientifically F is actually where the bass hits like the sweet spot. Everyone loves a Reese bass. yeah, so this is actually one of my sounds that I've resampled, and then the processing is just Logic compressor with a little bit of sidechain. Usually sidechain the bass to the kick. Then I've got this like adaptive limiter on it. Oh shit, sorry, that's loud. Then sausage fattener, which is somewhat of a meme, as I said, but you know, it gives it the beef. Look at his face. Yeah, and then the last one, again, I use this texture, which is great. Gives it the kind of grain on the top end. The other bass sound in there, which is kind of like this foghorn almost. So obviously that's sidechained. I used LFO tool that time to sidechain it. LFO tool's great. In terms of like distortion, Soundtoys Decapitator is good. And then obviously EQ, and then I've actually used Exciter on this, which sort of makes it brighter. Sizzle, which I think is a good word for it. Yeah, so that's drums, bass. In this track, I actually have a thin layer of sort of vinyl noise, which obviously is a bit of a cheat because it's not really a vinyl track, but it makes it sound more like organic, just in the background. And then, yeah, I'm quite heavy on effects and layering. So all my effects are here, just a sort of mixture of white noise, lasers. Yeah, so that really is a nice way to fill out the track. I love a laser. And yeah, so the music, in terms of chords, everything, this track actually came together it was a writing camp in London, so it was actually in person. And there was like a load of producers there, a load of singers, songwriters, and we just got put in like random studios with like people we'd never met before, and we had to try and make songs, which was obviously quite high pressure. But I got put in a room with Raphaella, I was actually a big fan of her before, so I was really happy about that. But yeah, she's wicked. So we did the chords and everything on a different computer, and then we did it on her laptop, and then we bounced it over here. So the chords, I mean, music theory wise, I'm not the best, so I kind of let her do the chords. Obviously quite nice. And then got this like arc thing. So yeah, the final touch obviously was the vocals, who were done by Raphaella. She actually wrote the song as well with some others.
You whisper cruel words I don't deserve. The more I learn.
So she actually mixed the vocals herself. She's very good. She actually did the vocal mixing on like Little Mix's album, which is quite mad. Yeah, so obviously have those in, but
you got a sharp tongue, but I've got a stronger love. Now that I'm moving on, say what you want, but don't say you love me.
So obviously I've got some side chain on the drop here on the vocals just to kind of give it more of a flow. Yeah, so I mean that's the track. It's actually not too complicated. There's only about 45 channels. Yeah. So I feel like when I'm mixing a track down, I try and cut the low end out of everything where it doesn't need to be, because it sort of gives more room. So literally only the sub really, and then a bit of the kick as well. Like the bass in this is all in one, but usually I do it where the sub bass is separate. And then with the mid bass, I'll cut the EQ so there's nothing below like 100 hertz, so it doesn't clash. Yeah, and then I run all my drums through a compressor bus. So this is my drum sort of chain here. So it's a compressor, isotope trash, and an EQ. Now this compressor setting, I'll play it without. Now this is with. Just gives it a nice extra bit of punch to the drums. And then isotope trash. There's a great setting here called clip control, which is in the distortion section, and that really beefs up the drums. So that's the drums, and then in terms of a sort of mix, before it goes to mastering, I feel like you can get kind of like, you can listen to it too much and then you just start going crazy, and you're like, you don't know what sounds good anymore. If I feel like a track's nearly finished, I'll probably try and bounce it out and then listen to it through like various speaker systems, like say my car, or even like out of my phone speaker, AirPods, laptop. And that's kind of when I think it's passed the test properly.